In 2026, most people think the cost of using Windows is simple and obvious. You buy a PC, it comes with Windows pre-installed. Maybe you pay for an upgrade every few years, and that's it. End of story. But that idea is outdated, and honestly, it's a bit dangerous. Because the real cost of staying on Windows in 2026 isn't written on the box. It's not listed on the Microsoft website, and it never shows up as a single charge on your credit card. It's hidden in time lost, control surrendered, hardware replaced too early, privacy quietly traded away, and opportunities you don't even realize you're missing. And what makes this even more interesting is that most Windows users don't feel these costs all at once. They feel them slowly, like a drip, 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 that becomes normal over time. You get used to it, you accept it, and that's exactly why it works. Let's start with the most invisible cost of all, your time. In 2026, Windows is more complex than it has ever been. On paper, it's more powerful, more capable, more intelligent. But in practice, that power comes with layers upon layers of systems running underneath that you never asked for. Automatic updates that interrupt your workflow. Background processes you didn't install. Services that re-enable themselves after you turn them off. Settings scattered across old control panels and new interfaces that seem to overlap but never quite agree. Every small friction point steals seconds, then minutes, then hours. Restarting because an update decided now was the right time. Troubleshooting why your audio device disappeared after a patch. Searching through forums to find which registry tweak might fix a bug introduced last month. None of these moments feel catastrophic, but together they form a massive time tax. Over a year, that tax is measured in days. Over several years, it's measured in weeks of your life spent maintaining an operating system that was supposed to make things easier. Now let's talk about hardware, because this is where the cost becomes painfully real for many users. In 2026, Windows has drawn a very clear line in the sand when it comes to supported hardware. CPUs that are still perfectly capable are labeled obsolete. TPM requirements, secure boot checks, and artificial compatibility lists mean that machines that could easily run modern software are suddenly considered unfit. And here's the key point. This isn't about performance, it's about policy. A laptop that runs smoothly today can be declared unsupported tomorrow. Not because it can't do the job, but because it doesn't fit Microsoft's future roadmap. The hidden cost here isn't just buying new hardware sooner than you should. It's the normalization of waste. Perfectly functional devices are pushed toward landfills or resale markets at pennies on the dollar. You're paying not only with money, but with environmental impact and lost value, all because the operating system decided your machine was no longer worthy. Security is another area where the hidden cost narrative gets flipped upside down. Windows markets itself heavily on security in 2026. Built-in antivirus, smart screening, cloud-based threat detection, AI-powered protection. It all sounds reassuring, but the reality is more complicated. Windows remains the largest target on the planet. That popularity comes with a price. Zero-day exploits, ransomware campaigns, phishing vectors tailored specifically for Windows environments. To stay secure, users are pushed into a constant cycle of updates, patches, and compliance. Businesses pay for extended security services. Home users rely on defaults they barely understand, and every layer of protection adds overhead, complexity, and often performance loss. The hidden cost here is mental load. You're always slightly worried. Is this email safe? Is this pop-up real? Did that update actually install correctly? Security becomes something you react to, instead of something that just quietly works in the background. And when something does go wrong, the recovery process is rarely simple. Privacy is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, because it's the cost many people prefer not to think about at all. In 2026, Windows is deeply integrated with Microsoft's cloud ecosystem. Telemetry isn't just present, it's foundational. Usage data, interaction patterns, system configurations, and behavioral signals are constantly being collected, analyzed, and used to shape future features and services. Microsoft insists this data is anonymized and necessary, and to some extent that's true. But the question isn't whether data collection exists. The question is, how much control you actually have over it. Disabling telemetry completely is still nearly impossible without breaking functionality or resorting to unsupported hacks. Privacy settings are fragmented, buried, and often reset during major updates. The hidden cost here is autonomy. You are no longer the sole owner of your computing environment. Your system is part of a larger feedback loop that you can't fully opt out of. And even if you personally don't care about privacy, that data still has value. Value you generate, but don't directly benefit from. Then there's the cost of software lock-in, which is subtle but incredibly powerful. Windows in 2026 is not just an operating system, it's a gateway to an ecosystem. Microsoft accounts are encouraged, sometimes required. OneDrive integration is baked in. Edge is deeply tied to system functions. Copilot and AI features are increasingly central, not optional add-ons. Each of these components works best when you stay inside the Microsoft world. Documents sync seamlessly. Settings follow you across devices. AI features learn your habits. It's convenient, no doubt about it. But convenience has a price. Once your workflow, files, and habits are deeply embedded, leaving becomes harder. Not impossible, but painful. Data migrations, format conversions, feature mismatches. The hidden cost is reduced freedom of choice. You're less likely to explore alternatives because the switching cost feels too high, even if those alternatives might be better, cheaper, or more aligned with your values. Performance is another area where perception and reality diverge. Modern Windows machines are fast, especially on new hardware. But as systems age, the performance curve often drops faster than users expect. Background services accumulate. Startup processes multiply. New features assume more powerful CPUs and GPUs. What was once a snappy machine becomes sluggish, not because the hardware is failing, but because the software has grown heavier. Users respond by upgrading hardware instead of questioning the software. This creates a cycle where Windows indirectly drives hardware consumption. The hidden cost here is paying for power you already had. You buy more RAM, a faster SSD, a new processor, just to get back to the level of responsiveness you enjoyed years ago. For creators and developers, the hidden costs can be even more pronounced. In 2026, Windows still dominates many professional spaces, but it also imposes constraints. Development environments are shaped around specific toolchains. Updates can break workflows overnight. Creative professionals deal with driver inconsistencies, especially in audio and video production. A system update can introduce latency, compatibility issues, or licensing problems with third-party software. Every hour spent fixing these issues is an hour not spent creating. And because Windows is considered the standard, these struggles are often normalized. People assume this is just how computing works. The hidden cost is lost creative momentum, something that's hard to measure, but deeply felt. There's also a psychological cost that rarely gets discussed. Windows trains users to accept a lack of control as normal. Forced updates. Features you didn't ask for appearing overnight. Interfaces changing without your consent. Ads and suggestions creeping into menus and widgets. Over time, this shapes expectations. You stop expecting your computer to truly belong to you. You adapt instead of customize. You tolerate instead of question. This might sound abstract, but it has real consequences. When users stop believing they have control, innovation at the individual level slows down. Experimentation feels risky. Customization feels fragile. The hidden cost is a quieter, less curious relationship with technology. Now consider businesses and organizations, because the costs scale dramatically at that level. Licensing fees are the obvious expense, but they're only the beginning. Compliance requirements, enterprise management tools, training for constantly evolving interfaces, compatibility testing for updates. IT departments spend enormous resources just keeping Windows environments stable. When something breaks, the cost isn't just the fix, it's downtime, lost productivity, and frustrated employees. And because Windows updates are largely on Microsoft's schedule, organizations are forced to react rather than plan. The hidden cost here is strategic inflexibility. Your infrastructure roadmap becomes tied to decisions made outside your control. Education is another area where the hidden costs of Windows in 2026 quietly accumulate. Schools and universities often choose Windows for compatibility and familiarity. But that choice comes with licensing expenses, hardware requirements, and ongoing maintenance. Older machines struggle. Budgets get stretched. Students learn tools that are proprietary rather than transferable. They become users, not owners. The hidden cost is in what students don't learn: how operating systems actually work, how software can be adapted, how systems can be shaped to fit needs rather than the other way around. Even gamers, one of Windows' strongest user bases, are starting to feel these hidden costs. While Windows still offers the broadest game compatibility, it also introduces layers of overhead. DRM systems, background services, anti-cheat drivers running at kernel level. Updates that impact performance or stability right before a major release. The hidden cost isn't just frames per second, it's trust. Trust that your system won't change in a way that breaks what you love doing with it. And then there's the long-term cost, the one that's hardest to see because it stretches into the future. By staying on Windows in 2026, you're implicitly supporting a model of computing that prioritizes central control, recurring revenue, and ecosystem dependency. That model shapes the direction of personal computing as a whole. It influences what alternatives can survive, what innovations get funded, and what kinds of users the industry is built for. The hidden cost here is collective. It's not just about you, it's about the computing landscape you help reinforce. None of this means Windows is evil, or that using it makes you wrong or foolish. Windows exists because it solves real problems for real people. But the danger lies in assuming that the cost of Windows is only what you pay up front, or what you see on an invoice. In 2026, the true cost is layered, distributed, and normalized. It's paid in time, control, flexibility, and missed opportunities. And because it's hidden, it's easy to ignore. The most important thing isn't to abandon Windows overnight. It's to become aware. Awareness changes the equation. When you recognize the hidden costs, you can make intentional choices. You can ask whether the convenience is worth the trade-offs. You can explore alternatives without pressure. You can demand more transparency, more control, more respect for your hardware and your time. In the end, the real cost of staying on Windows in 2026 isn't that it's expensive. It's that it convinces you that there is no alternative, and that belief, more than any license fee or hardware upgrade, is the most costly thing of all.